Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore our relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, A.C. Staubel
and Isaac Hill. So, welcome to our year in review for the Plant Cunning Podcast. We haven't done a duo show in a while.
Yeah.
It's been I think a whole year at least.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be our chance to catch up with you all and let you know what has been going on in our lives and get a chance to review everything that we've done this year. So it's been a really, really busy year. It's been one of the most productive, anxiety-inducing, and intense years so far for me, which is good. You know, it's been fun. Also not fun, but yeah, both fun and not fun. You know,
Challenging.
Yeah, but we've overcome all the challenges.
We did. Yeah. We started off the year in January, in February, and a little bit into March, I think.
It was January and February.
We went to Florida, and we traveled in our truck with our dog and camped out along the way or stayed with friends, all down the east coast of Florida to Key West and up through the Everglades and up the west coast and ended kind of in Gainesville before we came back north.
We hung out in the Ocala, Gainesville area for a few weeks with some different friends. Yeah,
I went to the Rainbow Gathering in Ocala, and Isaac got to see some of his friends from TAT organization, which is a retreat.
I did a retreat with Art Tickner, who we interviewed, many episodes ago. He's my main spiritual teacher. But we did a lot that trip. We were in Florida for 6 weeks, and we saw so many different people, and we're at so many different places. This is the first time that we've been able to travel in years, since 2019.
Which we're used to traveling every year, pretty much.
Yeah, her business is traveling, or farmer.
So I used to travel around my school bus, or
we met in Arizona. And when my band was on tour, and she was in the bus.
Yeah.
So our band would go on tour every winter down to Florida and to California and so on. But so it's been different being on the land.
Now the bus is parked as our guest house, and we have friends and people who come and help out, stay in the bus, and so we definitely still have the traveling itch, the desire to travel. So that was nice that we got to do that this winter, and our dear friend Marina watched the place for us and took care of the ducks and geese and cats for us while we were gone. So we were leaving the homestead in good hands, which really makes all the difference when you're going away for that long. So it was really fun to explore parts of Florida I hadn't been to. I spent way more time around Miami and south of Miami towards Key West than I have before, where there's just such amazing tropical fruits.
Yeah.
It was just incredible to taste some of these fruits for the first time.
Yeah, that was definitely the highlights for me. I mean, we didn't go into Miami proper, but
no.
Homestead is just a little south of Miami. But then when you're down there in South Florida, it's actually tropics.
Yeah.
And they have coconuts, and they have mangoes, and they have all these amazing sapotes. We tried black sapote, which is it's actually a persimmon. It's a Diospyros genus.
It's a custard fruit, though.
Yeah,
so you scoop it out with a spoon, like pudding.
It's like black pudding, chocolate pudding, in this green fruit, and it does look like a persimmon, but it's its own thing too.
Yeah.
The sapote comes from a native word that means soft fruit, and there's a bunch of different sapotes that are native to Central and Northern and South America, Central America, that are all unrelated, but they're all called sapote. So we had the black sapote, which is related to persimmons. We also had mamey sapote, which was amazing too.
It was, instead of black flesh, it was orange, papaya.
Yeah, kind of like papaya.
Yeah, it was a little bit more tropical fruit flavor, but still very soft, you ate it with a spoon. I think my favorite, though, was canistel.
Yeah, the canistel. I think that's also a sapote, but that was also unrelated. I think it might be related to the mamey.
It's more like a yellow custard, it reminded me of creme brulee.
Yeah, like
vanilla-y.
definitely like creme brulee or like egg, like custard,
Yeah,
like a
egg
dessert.
custard. Oh,
So amazing.
it's so
Oh, and the
so
star
good.
fruit were also amazing.
Yeah,
There's star fruit
you can eat
everywhere.
like 20 of those at a sitting.
Mm. I
They're
think
just
it
like juice.
have a lot of oxalic acid, so you're maybe not supposed to eat 20 of them in a sitting.
Hmm.
But so what we did, we on the when we were down there in South Florida, is we got to visit a lot of different botanical gardens.
Yes.
And they have this botanical garden in South Florida in Homestead, the Tropical Fruit and Spice Botanical Garden, and that was amazing. Botanical Fruit
Yeah.
and Spice Park. It's a state park, botanical garden, and we got to see all these different trees growing and pick up fruit from the ground, and that's always our favorite thing to do when we're traveling is to go to botanic gardens. So we
Yeah.
also went to like the botanic gardens in Key West, which is more the native flora. Like the fruit and spice park was more just fruits and spices, so we saw like allspice and all
Mm.
these other annatto. We
Yeah.
tried annatto used as lipstick.
Yeah. It's got this really amazing kind of brick red color. I, yeah, put some on my lips, and it's like the exact shade of lipstick that I would like to wear most of the time. It was like, yes, this is
Yeah,
perfect.
and that's like the famous food like dye plant that you
Hmm.
use in food, like the natural food coloring.
Hmm.
But in the Key West Botanical Garden, we met all the native plants to South Florida, and one of them was Jamaican dogwood, which is a fantastic
Yeah.
medicinal plant. Which once we met it and met it in person, in plant person, we were then able to see it everywhere.
Mm, yeah.
And so we found some, and we got to harvest some bark
Yeah, it
for
was
medicine.
the first time that I had like used resources to identify a plant in a while, like I'm not sure what this is. Let's go seek it out. And I relied entirely on Seven Songs post on Jamaican Dogwood or Pisidia. If you go to sevensong.com and look up Dogwood, it'll come up. And he just gave the most like detailed pictures of this is what it looks like from far away. This is like a cluster of them together. This is like up close in the bark. This is the leaf. So we were able to identify it with confidence. And yeah, then once we saw it all over the place. But it really was below a certain point, like in Key West itself, and a little
In
bit
South Florida, yeah.
outside in South Florida.
But it's a tropical plant, so it's
Yeah,
like
so
the
it's
only
really
place it grows in the
not
U.S.
anywhere else. Yeah, maybe in California, Southern California or Hawaii or something. But yeah,
I
definitely.
don't think it's not maybe naturalized there, but I think it's
Mm,
mainly Caribbean,
yeah,
Central American plant.
yeah, and it was really exciting to get some. And then we were at a campground and we were shaving the bark down, and then we were like babying it in different like spots we were staying, like taking it in the brown bags that we were storing in out to like dry and crisp up.
Didn't want it to rot, obviously, because we
Hmm.
put all that work into getting it.
Yeah,
And
but
yeah,
it's a really great pain relieving tincture, so I'm excited to have that in the apothecary. Yeah,
that was definitely one of
that was one of the highlights for sure,
my
meeting
favorite
Pisidia.
plants to meet.
Hmm.
They have all these giant orchid shops down there. You go in and there's just like rows and rows of
Oh,
orchids.
it's amazing.
So yeah, we got dancing lady orchid.
Hmm.
It's not like the typical orchids you see in the supermarkets in like the north with like the pink one. It's like a yellow one. It has all these small little orchids in a big like plume,
Yeah.
and it was just gorgeous. We saw that at the campground we were at in
Hmm.
a tree. They put it on a tree, and they were like, we should get one of those.
Yeah.
So we
We
did.
went to like 3 or 4 different orchid places just to scope, all the different types of orchids and take
They're,
it all in. It was amazing.
yeah, and they're so inexpensive compared, and they have all these other orchids that you don't see up here.
The trick is just driving them back through cold
Yeah,
country up to the northern part of New York. Like
but they made it.
they made
They're
it.
actually blooming right now in our
Yeah.
bathroom.
Yeah, they're
So
doing great. So we got a second bloom from this year. It's really exciting.
yeah, we actually got one of them like half off or whatever because it was done flowering, and that one's just sending out its flower spike right now. And the
Yeah.
other one we had is just, or maybe it was the other way around.
Hmm.
But
But
we got two of them, and they're both. One of them's just finished blooming, and one of them's just starting to bloom. So we had orchids, we had
Yeah.
tropical fruit, we had Jamaican dogwood.
And all the animals that we got to see down there.
Oh,
We went through the
alligators.
Everglades, and is that the
Yeah.
first time you've seen that many
Well,
alligators?
that's definitely the first time I've seen that many alligators. Like on the way
Yeah.
down there, we were like, I was like, where are the alligators? I want to trying to see some
Yeah.
alligators. I want to touch an alligator. I want to ride an alligator. No.
Don't. Don't.
But then when you're driving through the Everglades, like, oh, there's an alligator, there's an alligator, there's an
So
alligator,
many.
there's like hundreds of alligators
Hmm.
everywhere.
Yeah.
I guess that's why they call it Alligator Alley.
Yep. And the Anhingas, which like to
Yeah.
hang out in the gator country too. There's just like huge flocks, kind of like the way we see flocks of like turkey vultures, but more so. They like hang out in the trees like turkey vultures, that kind of remind me, and then they like fan out their wings in
Yeah.
the sun, like after they dive into the water. So
Yeah.
they're a really interesting
And all the
bird.
different egrets and cranes, and we saw
Yeah.
spoonbills, and
Hmm.
we got to do a lot of kayaking with some friends down there. So
Yeah.
that was pretty sweet too. Got to
Hmm.
really explore the wild lands
Hmm.
a little bit down in Florida, which is they're just so different than up here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just so different.
Yeah, we
Cypress trees.
yeah, the cypress trees. We saw a cottonmouth. We were hiking with some of our friends in Gainesville, and we passed it. We passed it, and then we walked back, and our friend pointed it out. It's like we had walked like within a couple feet of this coiled up
Yeah.
cottonmouth right on in the between some tree roots, and we didn't even see it. That's a little scary, but
Yeah.
so yeah. So we went to Rainbow, and I did my retreat with Art, and we visited some friends, and then we headed back home. That's also when we had a crisis. Our
Yeah.
first crisis. Well, we actually had several crises during the trip. You know, like when the
When I got stuck in the sand.
when the wheel almost fell off the truck in going down the highway.
Oh, that one.
Yeah,
Mm.
we had like had some problems. Got it fixed at a place in Asheville on the way down, and they must have put on the tires wrong. But one of them, they must put it on too tight. It almost like
The
the
bolts
bolts snapped
just
off. They
snapped.
sheared off while we were driving, like, and it was as we were pulling over that they sheared off. So like we were hearing some problems happening, and then we pulled over, and I found all the little bolts that had sheared off. So it was like that could have been really bad, but we had some help there, some
Yeah.
protection.
Yeah.
But there, all those kind of crises that happen when you're traveling, though, roughing it.
Hmm.
But then, my mom lives really close to where the Ohio train derailment is happening, and she was real freaked out when that happened in February. So we brought her up here to our farm on the way back, and that was a whole other situation, which we don't have to get into that. But that was one of the intense things that happened this year,
Hmm.
and we were kind of focused on helping out my mom and doing that kind of stuff for the winter and spring, like the late winter, early spring. And then I was also working on finishing up the Heathen Golden Dawn, which is going to come out this April. I actually still have to get back. I have to get some things done, sent back to them. I'm not very good at like these kind of deadlines and stuff.
You got it.
But that should be out in April with Aeon. And that's like, it's kind of a niche subject material. Like if you're interested in like heathenry and ceremonial magic, it'll be up your alley. But that was kind of a big thing for me because I feel like it's my like MA, my master's thesis in occultism, and it'll be the first book that I'm publishing. So that feels good. Yeah.
It's very exciting.
And then I guess the rest of the spring and summer was, I mean, we did a lot of other stuff. We went to Rainbow. We had a lot of stuff going on, but we had the conference. We had Plant Cunning Conference happening in September, so we were not ready. We had all like put on a conference takes
Yeah.
there's so many moving parts, so many little things that need to be done. Plus, we're hosting it here. We hosted it here, so we had to get the place ready, and we had this giant, beautiful barn, and it's like a mid 1800s hand-hewn timber framed barn. It's like huge. We fit 125 people in it, but it was filled with crap, and like literally a crap sandwich. There was a layer of pigeon shit on top, and then like stuff,
Lots of stuff.
just stuff.
Boxes of things.
Like she was a hoarder, and then just filled the barn up with stuff. And then on the bottom, there's like 100-year-old cow manure. So we
Pick things up and put them down many times.
we had some sales. We sold everything we could, and then we had a dumpster and threw away everything that was never going to sell.
I think the total was 6 dumpsters.
That's over the
last
since
4 years,
since we
but
moved
this
in.
summer we had 2.
Yeah, this summer we had 2 dumpsters.
The big ones.
Yeah, and I don't know how they collected all this. Just like
They were doing like eBay store stuff, but
and they had like barn sales, but it's just like all the good stuff had already been picked through, and we found some amazing things in there. But then just all the stuff that nobody wanted was left over, and I'm talking like mold. We burned a lot of the moldy puzzles and furniture and stuff like that. But anyway, that was a kind of a big project because there's a lot of stuff in that barn. And then what's it called when you do the power spray water?
Power wash.
Power wash. We power washed the whole inside of the barn multiple times.
Yeah.
Which actually opened up the 100-year-old cow manure smell, which wasn't present before. It was
once it got a little wet, it was.
It's like, oh, there's that aroma of 100-year-old manure.
Yeah.
But
it's very rustic.
Yeah, but it once it opened and it kind of
mellowed out.
It
didn't
dried
smell
up
for
again.
The conference, so that's good.
It was great.
Yeah. Isaac actually did this whole construction project too right before the conference, where he ripped out these old stanchions for cows for milking, and like floor on top of floor. You know how people will just like put a new floor on top of the old like raggedy floor, level it the best they can. He just like ripped all that out so that he could start fresh and put a lovely new, what kind of wood was it? Like
local hemlock.
Hemlock
floor. That's like
it's
a good
gorgeous.
Third of the barn was actually those stanchions.
We needed that space
Yeah.
if we were going to fit as many people as we were having coming in from registration. So he just rallied and did it. So it looks great.
Yeah, that was really where the 100-year-old manure was. It was in the stanchions. So there was the stanchions that we rebuilt. So we built it into like a floor, because it was deep. We couldn't just like fill it in. I mean, we could have maybe filled it in with stone, but that would have been a lot of expense and a lot of work. So we just built the floor out of the local hemlock. So it was nice.
Yeah. Fit everyone great.
And then meanwhile we're also like working on all the gardens and podcast and everything else, like all the businesses. And she went off to Rainbow. That was fun too.
It was a 2-week camping adventure with about 1,000 of my friends, not all of which I knew, but it was raining. It rained every single day that we were there. In the last couple of days, there was like catastrophic flooding. Like you might have heard about the flooding in Vermont that took out towns, and like the water was coming out of the earth and out of the sky. And there was like lightning that struck like feet from us at one of the councils that we had at the end of the gathering. And at the very beginning of the gathering, I got a really bad burn from hot water on my leg. It was like day 2 that I was there. So I was kind of nursing this burn the whole time, even up until the conference. It was like almost not entirely healed. And then there was like, there were some adventures. It was an intense gathering for everybody, but it was also like really fun. Like we had this awesome house show with 5 different musicians at our camp, and I was working with Everyone's Medical, which is the first aid tent, and really got to offer some support via like cooking and making tea for Everyone's Medical volunteer crew. And I got to work with an amazing midwife and another herbalist and Seven Song and some of Seven Song students. So it's always really fun to see like what kind of healing can happen under a tarp with a dirt floor in the woods. Because a lot of the folks that have come into the everyone's medical really don't see outside practitioners. They're not going to like a doctor. So they're getting like better care than they would in the cities that they're living in or in the country towns that they're from. So that is always really interesting for me about the rainbow gatherings.
Yeah.
But
So then I guess we come to the conference. That was
yeah.
so the big highlight of the summer. Things we were working towards all year. Man, it was so much, but it came together fantastically. We had the support of our close friends who helped make sure it happened. We had some amazing speakers. Matthew Wood and Zamboni came a few days early and hung out with us while everything was coming together, and that was pretty sweet. Got to hang out with them a little bit, have some fun conversations. And then all the speakers that came were amazing, and all the people that came were amazing too. So if you're hearing this and you were there, thank you for being there. You helped make it what it was. But I couldn't be any happier with how it turned out. There's a lot of things that we want to do better for next year. And it was definitely a lot of work. I was in charge of all the food. That was a big challenge, making sure everyone got fed. But what everyone said, everybody's reviews were glowing. Everyone seemed to have a great time. And we maxed out, and we had 125 people, which is as many people as we could fit into the barn. So yeah, that feels really good too for a first year event to have like a maxed capacity situation. We will in next year be able to have more than that, because we're going to do a larger tent, so we can have for like the sessions where everybody comes together, like the opening ceremony and the keynote and stuff. We can have it in a tent that can fit 200 people instead of in the barn, and then the barn can be one of the main workshop spaces. So then we can have more people here, because the camping we could have fit more camping. We could have fit more people in the camping. We could have fit more parking, but we just didn't fit any more in the actual barn. So that's like the limiting factor. And next year, So that's one of the things, for the first year event, it turned out really well. We learned a lot, and we're excited for next year. What are some of your takeaways from the conference?
Well, I was really grateful just in some of the pre-planning phases to have the support of Woodland Essence as one of our main sponsors, and Maple Creative, who is a online like website and tech firm that helps small businesses and artists get their businesses together. And Maple helped us build the website, and Woodland Essence helped us to immediately pay for some of the expenses like the tent and the porta potties and things like that. So it really made a difference for my anxiety levels going in to have that kind of support. And then I guess some of the takeaways are similar to what you said, the speakers being just like bringing such interesting topics up and sharing their knowledge. It was interesting that Olga Sogas from Smugtown Mushrooms found like dozens more mushrooms than we even knew were in our own woods that we walk all the time. Like, I don't know how they did that, but fungi people are special like that, I guess. And Dawn from Woodland Essence came out of retirement to do a woods walk and share some stories and like folklore. And that was a really fun walk. And yeah, it was just like a really big weekend for me. It kind of felt surreal, like honestly, from the standpoint of like all the work that went up into it. Like once we just kind of hit play on the conference and things were in motion, and like the speakers took over and knew when they needed to go. The volunteers were incredible. Peggy, our friend Peggy Sharp, did an amazing job with the volunteer management and making sure that everyone knew what to do. And part of everyone knowing not like what to do was not to ask me questions, but to go to Peggy. And that was like the best thing that could have happened for me for the conference, because they all were like completely held and taken care of by Peggy. But I, could also respond to the things that attendees were coming to me for, because I was, obviously one of the hosts, me and Isaac. So yeah, there's lots of things that come up in the moment. And so I kind of felt like I was just trying to take it in as much as possible and enjoy it as much as possible. And yeah, I was really pleased with the how the overall conference went and how amazing people who came were. Folks came alone, not knowing anyone, and they left like having shared amazing conversations with people in between sessions or at meals or at the music. The music was also incredible. We had a great time
Yeah.
dancing. We had, was it four different acts? Yeah.
Yeah, we had 4 acts.
Cleo Jade and Liana Gable, Colin and the Crows,
Joey.
and Never Showy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really cool to see the barn light up with music
Yeah.
and boot stomping fun. And like the barn was just made for that. It was made for exactly what we did that weekend. I feel like the spirits of this land and of the barn and the home here like really welcomed people and made it so that it was like a really safe container for folks to just relax in and enjoy the space here, which is like all that we can ask for as like the hosts of an event like this. So I think we're going to do it again next year.
Yeah, we're really excited. We actually have, I think it's going to be September 13th, the weekend, the full moon, weekend before the full moon in September. And so we're still working on getting some speakers lined up and getting everything rolling, but that's the plan right now. So if you were, if you were thinking about it, that's the time to mark the calendar.
Yeah. And email us too with any suggestions for next year or speakers that you think would be on point for this type of thing. So
yeah,
we'd love to hear from y'all.
So another thing that this year that was really big for me was studying Jyotish with Freedom Cole. And that's something that I had kind of been wanting to do for a little while. And we had him on the show in February. And after that, talking with him in that episode, I realized that like, yeah, this is my teacher. I need to be studying with this guy. I need to be studying in this tradition. And I'm just so glad I did. The tradition itself is a very powerful tradition. So Freedom's guru, it comes from, is part of a family lineage of royal astrologers. And by the time he was 8, he had memorized the Prashra Shastra, and he was like, so he was trained from a child to become a master astrologer in this lineage that had actually a lot of secrets that when he became a full-fledged astrologer and wrote books, he started to bring some of these teachings out. And so he's actually one of the most well-known astrologers in the world now, Sanjay Roth. So this is the Kutananda Das lineage. But Freedom is also an amazing teacher, and especially for like my temperament. So, and it's also was a really intense course, which is also something that I enjoy. So like maybe 60 people started and like 30 people actually finished because of the workload. Like it was like literally 15 to 20 hours a week minimum of study. And like it's like learning a whole language. And I've had some, training in like Renaissance techniques and so on, but this is a whole other language. And it has all these, it's using the sidereal zodiac, it's using double sign houses and all these other things, Aruda Lugnas, these amazing tools and techniques. And I feel like I'm really able to now, after having graduated from the level 1, to look at somebody's chart and see the karmic or archetypical framework of the person and find where like problems are happening on that karmic level, and then be able to offer like basic remedies. So I'm very excited about that and sign up for level 2 for next year too. But at this point, I can start taking. And I just graduated like 2 weeks ago, so I'm now able to do readings for the general public on a donation basis. So if you're interested in getting a Vedic astrology reading from me, drop me a line at plantcunning@gmail.com or info@plantcunning.com. And we can set up a reading for donation. So yeah, that's definitely something that was a big part of my year, and really glad I did. I feel like it's taken me to a whole other level. And if you're thinking about doing his class, I would definitely recommend it highly, especially if you have the time to devote to it, because it is a commitment. It's definitely a commitment, but it's also like, if for me, it's like it was what got me through this year.
And he also might not be teaching it forever, so.
Yeah, yeah. So he's a fantastic teacher as well. So yeah, that's where we're. Yeah, that was another big thing. We want to talk about
Those
some
are
of.
just like 3 really big accomplishments this year for you.
Yeah,
A book,
conference
conference,
and the Jyotish.
and graduating from, yeah, the Jyotish Vedic astrology program, Freedom, yeah.
Science
Really
of Light. So should we talk a little bit of some of our favorite plants from this year?
New England Aster stole the show at the conference, so
Yeah.
that's top of mind. It's like this gorgeous purple flower with a yellow center, and I have seen New England Aster New England Aster grow in the wild, among the goldenrods side of road in these like little clumps, and it's just gorgeous. But Isaac composted and nurtured and weeded around this like New England Aster clump that was in our Praria area.
Yeah, I've transplanted it there, and I divided one into 3 and put them together,
Yeah.
so it's like one giant clump.
It's just really ridiculous. It's like this giant bush of New England Aster. Even now, it's, dead, but the seed heads are still in this like giant form, and there's snow forming on them. And it's just such a presence in the garden still. So people were like, that's New England Aster? Like, wow, that is a robust looking plant right there. So,
and it's so pretty.
Yeah.
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it's a good medicinal plant too. So it has a center stage in our medicinal prairie area.
Yes.
native prairie. And then you really liked the rose this year?
Yeah, I harvested several times from the rose bushes in our garden, and it's just like such a special plant in general. But yeah, these roses have held their color, dried beautifully. I made a Tulsi rose tea blend to sell at market, and there's just something about these roses. They're just so beautiful and vibrant and so comforting, and they've really offered many of my friends and clients support in times of grief and sorrow to be, put into like rose glycerin or even rose tincture in a blend with some hawthorn and maybe some motherwort and some mimosa and Tulsi peach leaf. Like, I've been making these grief formulas that people have found a lot of comfort in. I think the rose really is carrying a lot of that load of a heavy heart in those blends. So
yeah, and this is a variety that this rosebush was actually here, and I don't know the exact name of the variety, but it's some kind of old-fashioned damask rose, and it only blooms for like 3 weeks to a month in like June, July, like, and it's just the most wonderful smelling rose ever. Gorgeous, amazing smell.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful plant. The calendula also did really well this year.
Yeah.
Which, it likes to do well.
I like to have lots of calendula around.
But we like transplanted a bunch because we have the greenhouse now this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so they self-seeded in the greenhouse and were started growing well before the last frost outside. So we were able to dig up a bunch of the seedlings from the greenhouse and then put them outside and get a jump on them. So we had like hundreds of seedlings. So we had like whole rows of calendula, and that was just gorgeous all summer. Love calendula. That's such a fantastic flower and herb.
Mm-hmm.
And then the red amaranth as well.
Yeah.
I had this beautiful patch of red amaranth and magenta lamb's quarters, and then some of the native goosefoot lamb's quarters in a place I had just composted. I moved the compost pile, and then they all grew right there. And it was our greens, our morning greens for most of the summer. So
there's also some dandelions that were like, the leaves were like the size of your arm.
Yeah.
So I would harvest dandelion, like one leaf, to put in with our sauteed greens.
Yeah. No, the red amaranth is just so red. Yeah. So I actually like, I don't know if this is too much information, but you know how when you eat beets, the next day, sometimes you're like, if you forgot you ate beets, you're like, oh crap, am I like bleeding out of my butt? But no, actually it's just the beets, right? It's the anthocyanins. But the same thing with these this red amaranth.
We just, instead of eating our greens, we call it eating our reds.
Yeah. So that's some good medicine too.
And then in the fall, their seed heads are gorgeous.
Yeah.
And they're really great in dried wreaths and dried bouquets. Our friends got married this fall and they had lots of amaranth throughout their flower gardens and their bouquets, and it's beautiful. And I guess you can eat the seeds. We haven't done that yet. Have you done that in the past?
Oh yeah. It's
kind of like a millet or.
Well, they're related to the
quinoa.
Quinoa, yeah. The land squares are more closely related, but they're all related. They're just really very tiny. I mean, you'll have amaranth flower in some of the ancient grains, situations.
Mm-hmm.
They're good. They're just very tiny little seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that is something. You'll do a bunch of getting all the seeds and then winnowing them, and then you're left with that much tiny little amount. But yeah, so those are some amazing plants, highlight plants of this year. And then
we finally got the pleurisy root going too in the area.
Butterfly
weed. It's
butterfly weed.
Just such a beautiful, vibrant orange color. So it's adding all these pops of orange low to the ground. It's like about 1 foot to 2 foot tall plant, and so that's like at the front of the praria. But anyway, yeah, the praria is coming along really nicely.
And this year was a great year for a lot of my trees. I started all these trees from cuttings or from seed. Some of the persimmons are really actually starting to take off a little bit now. The pear trees that I've grafted and all those trees are actually, takes them a few years to get their roots in, and then they start getting big. The hedge we planted out front is actually like a full hedge now with you have elderberry there and Nanking cherry and roses and sweet cicely and a bunch of Sochan, yeah. Sochan's great too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what are some of your favorite Plant Cunning podcast episodes from this year?
Yeah, we had some really great guests on this year. I really vibed with Lucy Jones, the self-sufficient herbalist, and I love her new book that we talked about during the episode. She grows a lot of her own herbs or harvests her own herbs for her apothecary, and she's just such a joyful plant person that I really enjoyed speaking with her, so I would definitely recommend that one. And I liked talking with our friend Olga Tsogas as well from Smugtown Mushrooms. We learned some things about ways of preparing mushrooms. We talked about a lion's mane ceviche that at the conference she actually made for us, and we got to taste it, and it was like just such a great moment to get to try that firsthand. When I was like talking to her on the episode and my mouth was watering, I was like, I can't wait to do that, but of course I never did it. But she got to make it for us, so that was a fun episode. And she's just like hilarious. She's a down to earth, funny person.
Well, I definitely really like the Freedom Cole episode. Obviously started studying with him, but put together a lot of stuff for me as far as like the interaction between like Ayurveda and astrology, medical astrology, spiritual astrology, remedies, all that kind of stuff. That was mind blowing for me. I also really enjoyed Ken Asmuth's episode. He's the guy from Oikos Tree Crops, and he's just a funny, down to earth guy too.
Yeah,
and he just loves plants.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to just like geek out on plants, which is always fun. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons for doing this show, is to get to geek out about plants and astrology and spirituality and all those kind of things with folks. So yeah, so it's been a good year. Definitely a little bit intense, but on the whole, a very powerful year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess is there anything else we wanted to talk about before we wrap it up?
Not really. I think that's the major points, but I am excited for looking ahead. We're not going to do that right now, but for looking at the year ahead, we're about to interview Zamboni Funk next week to do year ahead astrology forecast. So I'm excited for that, and look out for that episode next.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cheers.
Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.